Well, have you heard the news? It seems it blew up on the internet. I woke up the next morning, fellas were sending me links constantly to this. A Chevette sold for $30,000 at a Mecum auction. I just finished watching Uncle Tony's Garage. He done a little story on it, backstory, the whole 9 yards. I got a lot of respect for Tony. I enjoy his videos. If you ever get a chance and you want to learn some interesting history and stuff like that, he's a great knowledge for that. He's a real Mopar man. I'm willing to say he was around the same time like myself when the Chevettes were brand new and they were on the road and stuff like that. But both of us have a little different aspect to look at these cars. He looked at them as if like they were forgotten. Who knows about them? Whatever, right? To me, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and these were the cars that I had. Okay, I had pretty well one of every single year. I fell in love with the cars from the first one I had, which was a '76, right to the last one, which was an '86. I had a whole bunch of them to the point that I liked them that much that I actually built one and made a V8 car out of it. Okay. Some of the history, he talks about there were forgotten cars. They don't have a following and stuff like that. There is a large following for these cars. They're all over the internet. Okay. There was over 2.5 million of these cars built from 1976 up to 1987. Okay. They've been used in ice racing. There's a full class of racing, Chevette's ice racing, drag racing. Like every time you turn around, you look and you see a Chevette at a drag strip converted to a V8, right? They do have a following. I'm on a number of Facebook pages, groups that are dedicated to Chevettes. They were not only a North American car, they were also sold overseas. Vauxhall built them over in England and in places. The Vauxhall version was a lot like the North American version. The fronts were a bit different, but they still had the same door, the body structure, all that. But what's interesting about them is the history on them, okay? They were started in 1975, but what a lot of people don't realize, the whole car concept was based off an Opel, okay? Now, if you went out and got a '70 Opel and you jacked it up and looked at the bottom side of the car, what you will see is a Chevette, okay? The rear suspension and the front suspension, it was the same setup as in a Chevette. So they were designed in 1969. They were a compact car. They were a simple mode of transportation. They were standard steering, standard brakes. You get them in automatics, little 4 speeds. Later on, you can get them in 5 speeds. They had a simple little 4-cylinder engine in them. I can honestly tell you, I've never ever killed an engine in one of them, and I never killed a transmission in one of them. And I can tell you, I drove them in the winter. If I was going to kill a transmission in one of them, I would have done it during the winter months because I got them stuck more than once. Drive, reverse, drive, reverse, drive, reverse. Never ever killed a transmission. They were a strong little car for beating around and having fun with, okay? Were they fast? No, they weren't fast. It wasn't a car built for that. It was built from point A to point B. There was a lot of them sold. They never took the recognition that like a muscle car or anything would have took. A great car, lots of horsepower, rarities, and all this type of stuff. No, it just wasn't. Just a different type of love that comes through cars like this. All these little small compact cars takes a following. There are followings for them all, okay? I just found that when this Chevette sold, it was 47 miles on the car. To look at the car and you could see that the car was a used car by the looks of it to me. It didn't look mint like I've seen 47 mile an hour cars. And the biggest thing I questions about that car was the speedometer ever disconnected in it? Because my father used to keep mileage on the cars. Okay, we had a Chevette, and my father worked offshore, so he was gone for months on end. So I used to be driving the Chevette. When he come home, he turned around and tell me, "Tony, where were you to? You got 300-400 kilometers put on the car." So I got smart and I disconnected the speedometer cable. So when he went out on the boat, he didn't know how far I went. But I made a mistake. I forgot to hook the speedometer back up when he come back in. So needless to say, I got a tongue lashing for that. But anyway, that Chevette that was sold, it had some wear on it, and you can look at it. It wasn't a mint car, But still in all, it's because of the hype. And the biggest thing with it is, I don't care what anybody says, it's got nothing to do with the car. It's got nothing to do with the value. It's where it's sold. Everybody's hung up on what a car was worth, the value of a car. It has nothing really to do with what the actual car is, right? When I was into cars never had value to no great extent. It's like if you like the Chevy, you bought a Chevy. You like the Dodge, you bought a Dodge. You like the Ford, you bought a Ford. You never bought um, a Dodge because it was more expensive. You never bought a Ford because it was more expensive. You never bought a Chevy because it's more expensive. You bought them because you like them cars. Today, it's all about the value of them. Okay, like we bought Chevettes and Mustangs, and like one of the boys bought a Charger for $800, an RT Charger. It was just an old Charger. He scrapped it. There was no more to it than that. And that was just the way it was back then. But now it's just like you go out and it's because this is worth a lot of money, and because this is not worth a lot of money. It's all in who wants the car. Okay. Tony made one comment. He turned around and he said two people on that auction and drove that to $30,000. But the funny thing I always notice when you watch these auctions, if you get like a Superbird or something going across the block, if that car went for $1 million, it was only two people bidding on it. Most times, it was two people would fight back and forth for that car. And that's just the way an auction works. It'll start off with a group of people, and it'll come down to two guys that really want that car, and it'll go back and forth. So that's just the way it is. Them auctions, they drives the price of cars through the roof. Is that Chevette worth 30 grand? Nah, a good Chevette around, a mint Chevette around, you see them around $7,500, $5,500, something like that. $10,000 is a lot of money to ask for a Chevette, in my mind. So, but still, there's a following out there for the cars, right? Do I think the Mopars and the Dodges and the Mustangs are worth millions of dollars? I was never into them. See, if you're familiar to my channel, you realize that I'm building a Pro Street Toyota Corolla, 1978 Toyota Corolla. I grew up in the compact era when all the companies were building small rear-wheel drive compact cars. The Vega, the Toyota Corolla, the Dodge Colt, the Dodge Arrow, and then you had the Chevette, and you had the Astra, and you had the Acadian. I had all these cars that were kicking on the rear-wheel drive cars, and these are the cars that I liked. I loved it when Pro Stock came in and the Vegas and the Pintos came on, and they were making actual super stock. And these cars were in there. I loved them cars. I had no interest in Camaros. I had no interest in Mustangs. I had no interest in Chargers. Okay, nice cars, but they just big cars. They were nothing to me. I love the small compact cars with a V8 engine. That's the reason why I'm building this car here. And if I had to find a Chevette, a 76 to 78 Chevette, I would have built that instead because I already had one of them built. I just thought it was very interesting how the internet is looking at this sell. Okay, a lot of people diss them and put them down, but there is a big following for these cars, and a lot of people like them. Most of the people that are into them cars have memories with them. They went to high school with them. They drove to and from university. They met their girlfriend with them. Whatever. Me personally, I spent my entire teenage years and early 20s building Chevettes. Okay. I'd buy one Chevette, drive for 6 months, get another Chevette, scrap the first one, build a second one, drive that for 6 months. And to me, it was just boredom. It had nothing to do with the cars never lasted long. It's just that I get bored with cars at that age. So I was buying them, and I liked the little cars. The last one I done, I turned around and I went overboard with it. I fully restored the thing. I painted it all up, and I drove that car for like 3 years. And I sold it, and Buddy drove away in it. Right? So it wasn't like it was a disposable car in my mind. They were. Everything back then was okay, like today's standards. Everything back then was a simple little car. There's way too much options in cars today. Like they need to come back with a simple car, like the way the Chevette was, that people can just buy and just go and hop in. All right, was the Chevette worth 30 grand? No, not really. Is a Daytona worth $1 million? Is it really worth it? It's worth it to the man who buys the car, okay? And that was always said to me when it comes to buying a car, selling a car, you're selling the car, how much are you going to get for it? Well, I'm going to get what everybody's willing to pay for it. And that's the whole point of these auctions. Let's gather all the millionaires together, stick them in one room, and put shiny cars in front of them. Let them fight it out. It's disposable income from a lot of them fellas. A lot of it's tax write-offs, okay? But because we have these here, it drives the value of the automotive industry through the roof, okay? Because that. There was a time you could go out and you can buy a 68 Camaro that needed quarters and floors and, had never had an engine in it, needing some interior work. All the glass was in it, but it needed the full going through. You pick it up for $800. You bring it home. You spend $2,500, $3,000 on the car. Get yourself a nice little car, right? Now that same car, fellas, wants $10,000 and $15,000 for. And I just don't see that because the labor rate on rebuilding these cars is always overlooked. Okay, once the car was painted, it's only painted and is worth the value of what that car is looking like. But to get a car pristine original costs way more today than it ever has to restore a car. Paint jobs, $10,000, $15,000 for a regular everyday car to paint a car. Restoration's $100,000 on a car that's worth 80 grand. Okay, so it just seems like the value is just going through the roof on all this stuff, regardless of what it is, whether it's a heavy duty muscle car or it's a simple little Chevette. Okay. I was happy to see that, brought a smile to my face that the Chevette was getting some recognition. Okay. It's because I just grew up with the cars. I thought they were cool. I had fun with them. I got a lot of memories with them. Okay. And that's what they are to me. I never ever bought one new. Okay. A lot of people base a lot of the criteria on new cars when they were new. Someone bought a new car, brought it around, it was junk. I've heard people saying, oh, they were junk back in the day. What? Chevette's junk? Everything is junk when you think about it. Everything needs rebuilt. Everything needs brakes. Everybody has engine problems. Starters goes, alternators goes, all that type of stuff. But it was just one of those things. A Chevette had a horrible ride, so did the Corvette, right? There's a number of things you can get into here, and you can compare a high-end muscle car to a low-end compact car and realize that there is not a lot of difference there. It's just that people want this and they don't want that. And that's the extent of it, right? To me, eventually, I want to find another one. I like to find a 78 or 76 through 78 model, all original. And I like to get it restored back to original. Do I want to sell it? No. Do I want to make it a $30,000 car? No. Is it going to be worth 30 grand? No, right? But I would like to have one of them cars. It's just one of those things, okay? I've been looking around on the internet, sized them all up. I'd say over the next 3 or 4 years, I'll probably do a road trip, hop on a plane, fly somewhere, pick one up and drive it home. That'd be my goal. Some fellas want to hop off on a plane and drive somewhere and find a 68 Mustang and, drive it home, or, find that 70 Chevelle and drive it home, or that, 71 Cuda and drive it home. No, this fella wants to find a Chevette on the mainland somewhere and drive it home. But that's it. That's what I'm into. I'm into the compact cars. It was quite interesting the last few days to go through that. And I really got entertained by Uncle Tony's comments, the things that he said. I just found that he was a Mopar man, a very knowledgeable man, and he worked on these cars, but he never owned them, I don't think. Okay. I can't see a Mopar guy wanting to own a Chevette. But like he probably, worked in the garage, put brakes on them, drove them around the block 3 times, brought them back, and they're junk. And that's the extent of it. But that's just his look on it. He was a mechanic. Mechanics are like that. They drive thousands of cars in a run every year, and they make quick judgments on a drive around the block. That's just one of those things. I'm coming from a guy who owned 15, 20 of these cars. And at the time, I wasn't looking at nothing else. When that car started acting up, and usually it was up here, I live in the Rust Belt. Usually the floors would go in them, and then the shock towers in the fronts would rot out of them. And everything was rusty back then anyway. So when that stuff started going, so I went hunting around and trying to find another car. Or a lot of times maybe if like the springs were gone, the ball joints were bad, the gas tank was leaking, the floors were gone, the doors were gone. You just said, okay, time to replace this, get another car. That turned into a parts car, that one there did then, right? But what did I go look for? I went looking for another Chevette. I just enjoyed the cars. I had a lot of fun with them. Right? But anyway, I just figured I'd come on here, something a bit different, and address Uncle Tony's video. If you get a chance to watch him, go over and check him out. You got a lot of cool stuff, right? Nothing against him. Man's a lot smarter than I am when it comes to Mopars and drag racing history and stuff like that. I watch him and learn a lot from him. So I enjoy he does a lot of low buck stuff, and that's me all over, right? But anyway, I'm going to just look at that and just say $30,000 Chevette. Cool.